A relationship with the right referral partner could be a game changer for any B2B company. So what if you could reverse engineer these relationships at a moment's notice? Start a podcast, invite potential referral partners to be guests on your show, and grow your referral network faster than ever. Learn more at sweetfishmedia.com.
You're listening to B2B Growth, a daily podcast for B2B leaders. We've interviewed names you've probably heard before, like Gary Vaynerchuk and Simon Sinek, but you've probably never heard from the majority of our guests. That's because the bulk of our interviews aren't with professional speakers and authors. Most of our guests are in the trenches leading sales and marketing teams. They're implementing strategy. They're experimenting with tactics. They're building the fastest growing B2B companies in the world. My name is James Carberry. I'm the founder of Sweetfish Media, a podcast agency for B2B brands, and I'm also one of the co-hosts of this show. When we're not interviewing sales and marketing leaders, you'll hear stories from behind the scenes of our own business. We'll share the ups and downs of our journey as we attempt to take over the world. Just kidding. Well, maybe. Let's get into the show.
Welcome back to the B2B Growth Show. I'm your host for today's episode, Sean Blackburn with Sweetfish Media. I'm joined today by Yasmine de Aranda. She is the growth strategist at Market 8. Yasmine, how are you doing today?
Very well, Sean. Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. I'm excited to have you on today and talking about how to build an integrated growth marketing strategy. But before we jump into that, please tell our listeners a little bit about you and your background and what it is that you guys do over at Market 8.
Fantastic. I'm the growth strategist and account lead at Market 8. I started my career a couple of years back, about 15 years ago, moving between sales, business development, marketing, advertising for B2B brands, B2C brands. I had the pleasure of being taught by one of the visionaries in marketing here in Montreal, Nicolas Gaudreau, who was really leading the Bell Canada account on the digital strategy side. So after graduating from art school, I rolled into marketing and advertising, and that amazing teacher of mine opened the door to Cossette Advertising, which was back in the days, and I think it still is, one of the leading advertising agencies. So that really shaped my experience. It shaped, how I think, how I function. It's really embedded, I think, in the DNA at this point. So I use, all of that background to really move things in the positive way with Market 8. I've been with them for 5 years. So I've seen the company evolution. When they started in 2008, they were really an inbound agency that was partnering up with HubSpot. They've evolved into website and conversion. So they really identified that there was a need, So from that, the company really evolved its core offering to customer-centric web development. And that evolution started moving into conversion rate optimization. So we kind of have, multiple methodologies, I would say. We're very agile, we're very lean. We like, as soon as we see and identify a gap in the market, we kind of, reshape a little bit, our offerings or products and, try and fill the gap. We're very customer centric. We're very much customer aware. It's all about customer delight.
I love that.
Yeah, it's pretty neat.
It sounds like overall, it's going to match up well with our topic today. Obviously, growth marketing, it's to me a lot about, finding those opportunities. And like you said, the holes in the market. But whenever we're seeking to kind of define terms and kind of just start off here, how would you define growth marketing strategy overall?
So I think it's really, it's a very data-driven approach, and data-driven and empirical marketing is something that has been there, forever. It's just, it's only now getting, into the last couple of years with conversion rate optimization also, being very much of a hot topic, growth hacking being a hot topic. I think it's really a data-driven approach to really figuring out, where your gaps are and where your best investment could be. And again, it's really looking at currently what's going on, understanding the company's context. Context is key, and making the most out of the context. There's no two companies that are really created equal. You can even have, two direct competitors offering, exactly the same service to exactly the same customers. Then it's becoming, a price competition. So there's room for everybody on the market. The best way to look at growth strategy is really being able to invest in the best place possible. So it's, the lowest investment, that has the highest impact. And to be able to identify that, there's definitely a huge amount of analysis and research that needs to sync with the buying process. So it's kind of, merging the buying process with the selling process, and then saying, okay, what's the context? Where are we at? Is it, is our team an asset? Is our product an asset? What's the competition looking like? So when I draft a growth strategy, I'm very much into still the SWOT analysis. So really identifying, the threats and opportunities on the market. So something that you cannot control and that you will need to live with, when you're developing a product. Because although you cannot control it, you can still prevent it. You can work around it. There's enough, marketing channels that, that can really, bridge the gaps in the best possible way.
Absolutely. And so on the optimization side, it's important to, like you said, identify those opportunities and to, that's part of what you guys do at Market 8, but kind of maybe speak to me about the importance of building that in an integrated way. I know that's our subject statement today, and I'm interested in the integrated side that you take with your approach.
So it's really all about building that surround effect. When you put yourself in the shoes of your customer and you realize that, a customer at the end of the day, whether you're selling B2C or B2B, we're humans, we're people.
Right.
We have, we all function in the same way, whether we spend our time on LinkedIn, on Facebook, the content that we consume is, different. We consume it a different way depending on the time of day. So I think, it all really starts with understanding the buyer, understanding his journey, understanding, where he lives online and offline. And then this is where the integrated, part of the action is you need to have multiple touch points. If you're a brand new company and you have absolutely no brand awareness and you need to gain some kind of, exposure and some kind of credibility, there's multiple ways of doing that. And advertising alone will just not work. So it's about, creating content. You need to be where they are, but you also need to bring value where they are. So it's really about building that surround effect. It's just, one touch point will not work. It cannot work because they're only seeing your brand from just, from one place, and they may not even be ready to accept that brand at the time. Being in multiple places only builds your credibility, only builds, to the product and the value that you could bring to them.
Yeah, I love that you guys are encouraging people to take an integrated approach to their growth marketing. And, it is about that surround effect. It's how trust is built. And I think that it's fantastic. And, one of the things I'm curious about it, and you mentioned the proposal that you will come up with for your customers. What was that called?
Yeah, a growth marketing strategy. Yeah.
How is it that you approach the growth marketing strategy for your clients?
So the first key step is really understanding the buyers. So sometimes it will be, sitting down with the actual sales team on the client's end. So we're very much about we try to bridge the gap between sales, marketing, product. Also, product is key, product is at the core, and customer success. So we're really full funnel. A lot of companies are focusing on acquisition. That's great. A lot of companies will focus on nurturing. That's great. A lot of companies will focus on, conversion. So it's like the website. We really tend to see, the whole funnel. So the first thing is really identifying low-hanging fruits. And usually that comes, between identifying, let's say, the number of people that have, let's say, requested a demo or like taken a bottom of the funnel action, but have not yet activated. They haven't signed up. So that's your lowest hanging fruit, right? Because you've got a bunch of people that are like super excited, that have like gone, they've done exactly what you've been like trying to get the others to do, but they haven't. So that's the low-hanging fruit. So that usually is like the first thing that we'll take a look at is look at the numbers and see if we can at least move the needle there. Then as you're, moving up in the funnel, so as you're moving into, the evaluation stage is usually, anybody who's looking actively for a solution and evaluating the different options. So we call them high intent users. They're actively seeking a solution. They're looking at your competitors. They may even have considered you. So that's like usually the second low-hanging fruit. And we tend to build a strategy like that. It's not necessarily an amount. So yes, budget is key, but in being mindful about your budget, you need to kind of reverse engineer. So lowest hanging fruits, and the lowest cost to implementation also. And then, as you're building the funnel upwards towards awareness, then, that's where you're really casting a net. So when you've exploited all the options towards the bottom of the funnel, then you can start, spreading the net open. And then what a lot of, companies will forget about is what happens after activation. I've gotten somebody to sign up and they're on their own.
Right.
All of a sudden you realize that, there's more to that. You can actually gain referrals because a social proof is always, much more valuable than, trying to get somebody to convert, from scratch without even knowing your company. So when they've got a social proof, there's so the referral and the viral effect of your product. This is where, product-led growth is coming into play. So the strategies are really a mix and match depending on who you're targeting, what the buying process is. It's usually a mix and match of, the accounts-based marketing, inbound methodology. So anything that, attracting content and creating content, it's going to have some product-led growth, trying to bring in the virality to the product and seeing if it is a match to get the activations and the referrals going. Yeah, it really is all about the buyers. Sometimes when you're too much of a visionary, you have a great product, but nobody knows that your product exists. So it's you don't know what you don't know. You need to educate. When you need to educate, it's a little bit like HubSpot. You need to create content to educate. So that's where it becomes extremely difficult to do a lot of things in parallel. So this is where, building a plan with low hanging fruits. And then, as you're doing that, you have to keep on going, keep on creating that awareness, keep on creating, credibility for your product.
I love that. And you mentioned that you guys get very tactical with these plans. You guys get very specific with this.
When we build a plan, we usually lay it out, for like a full year. And very realistically, you never implement coming to Q4, you never implement, what you've planned out in Q1. And that's normal. That's like, it's all about agile and being able to move gears and adapt to what's going on if you want at the time. We try to paint, if you want, the story for a full year. We know that we're going to have some adjustment, but we're at least, putting the brush, the biggest brush strokes in place. The tactics are all detailed with a messaging direction, with what exactly is going to happen, what channels are we going to use. So if we're launching, one type of SEM campaign, we're going to define, the channels, we're going to define the messaging that's going to go on the channel. So we really dive into the execution because we also execute. So we've got, different cells. We've got obviously, strategy is, if you want, a central role, but strategy and let's say, the SEM and SEO team work really hand in hand. So we'll work together to say, okay, well, what are the best campaigns that we can launch? And I'll give, an example where we're, doing an SEO keyword analysis. We're identifying what are the best keywords to rank for a specific client. You've got the detailed plan. You know exactly, who's competing on what from your competitors. And what do? Do you go after the same keywords as your competitors? Or do you take a completely different approach to that and hit, where the space is still a little bit void? So this is how granular we go. We really, we make sure that every single tactic that we have in place, that everything is detailed down so that we understand that there is a purpose. It's not about tactics. A lot of companies will put the tactics before the strategy. So they'll come with a great idea. Hey, I want to create a viral video. Yes, awesome. And then what? How do I do that? What content am I going to say, in the viral video? And what's the viral video going to be about? And what type of artistic direction we're going to take? Then you haven't answered two key questions, which is, what are you trying to achieve? What's your business objective? Based on that, who's your target audience? Based on that, now that's your strategy. You want to create, you've got, let's say, little budget and you need to make a huge boom on the market. Sure, you can go with something viral, but if you haven't identified the two first points, you're very likely not going to be able to answer the third point, which is, why the viral video and what is it that you're going to say in that viral video? There's good chances that your viral video will not even resonate to the audience. You're creating something that is maybe too, more millennial, and your core audience is 60 plus. When you're hitting at the enterprise customers, B2B customers, it's not all about millennials. So a great idea of a video will not fly.
What I like from, what you've described so far is that the work starts at the implementation level. there's a lot of work in the growth marketing mindset that doesn't just end with the strategy and the planning. And, that's just the beginning, isn't it?
Yes, it is. It's, I think it's, strategy is at every single level. It's at the high level, and then it's really at the tactical level at every single point. A good brief, even to a vendor, starts with strategy. Then, it's also all about measurement. Are you measuring what matters to your business to be able to take those decisions? If you're not measuring anything, or if your data is totally spoiled, or you're looking at the wrong data, you won't be able to know what marketing activity is working for you, what marketing activity is not working for you. And so data analysis is really also very central. We kind of we leave it on the side because nobody's really comfortable with Google Analytics, and it's that overwhelming mammoth. But it's the elephant in the room. It's really the one thing that drives everything at the research level, even at within the buying process of trying to identify the buying process of our customers and their customers. Google Analytics is central. It's the quantitative research that really helps us shed some light and put map, if you want, the qualitative research that we do of running surveys or market research and piecing things together.
As a growth strategist, how is it that you guys implement the testing for your clients? What are some of those common cadences and common rhythms that you would suggest for anyone as they're evaluating their growth marketing strategy throughout a year? What are some of those common checkpoints?
Testing and experimentation is great when there's a lot of volume. So you want to make sure that your data is accurate, and having too small of a sample doesn't necessarily tell you the full story. So, you need to be mindful about, what is that you're testing, and do you have a pool of, numbers? Is your data pool big enough to give you a full, a valid and accurate picture of what's going on? So when we're running tests, we're very mindful of deciding, what are we going to run? What is the assumption that we're trying to validate? Do we have enough of a pool of audience to be able to run, let's say, an A/B test? If we don't, what's the alternative? When you're, running an experiment, if you're testing, let's say, emails, you can't test everything, right? You can't test, the subject line as well as the content of the email, as well as the CTAs. You will try to say, well, first, what is it? What's the assumption that I am trying to validate? And you need to make sure that your decision really makes sense and is mindful of the pool of audience that you have. So if you're running an A/B test and you've got a small pool of data, a smaller data set, what you're going to try to do is probably aim to create a B version that is completely different than your A version. You're not gonna just try to change a color or a word. You're really gonna go, completely different and really test out, the best way around. Same thing for, running tests on your websites. You don't need to run a test at every single page of, your website. What you need to do first is look at your analytics and identify the leaks in your websites. Identify, what are the areas that are not helping your visitor convert. Based on that, you can, sometimes it's a simple bug that's preventing them from continuing the course of their conversion. Sometimes, it's something to do with the messaging. Sometimes it's CTAs. CTAs are not always, clear and shining on websites. So I think before running to, testing and experimenting, when a lot of companies, would love to A/B test everything, but you can't. You need to be able to prioritize your test. You need to prioritize the assumptions that you're trying to validate and what's really going to move the needle at the end of the day.
It could be an overwhelming thing if someone's not come from a growth marketing background to kind of consider this for, their business, say it's a marketer. Now, what would be kind of your final encouragement for marketers to approach growth marketing and the strategy overall?
I think the first step is really, look into your data and identify where you've got weak points. So identify where you've got weak points, identify if it's in the acquisition, where in your funnel from acquisition through to referral, where do you see and where are you able to identify with data that there is an issue? Based on that, you start asking the right questions, which is why? Why is it that I'm having an issue? Is it a mismatch with my buyers? Is it, a mismatch of content? Am I not meeting the expectation of the buyer at this stage in the funnel? If you're spending money on advertising and you're getting a lot of impressions, but nobody's clicking and nobody's, filling up a form, you need to ask yourself questions. And the thing is, it's not a cookie cutter solution. It's not about best practices.
Right.
Best practices are when you don't have data, you use best practices. When you do have data, you make sure that you leverage the data that you have to tell you the story, to paint, an accurate picture of that story without a bias, because bias is what kills any work that you're doing. Everybody's got an opinion. Your boss is going to have an opinion. Your colleague will have an opinion. We all have different life experiences. What you want to know is identify the right trends, can really tell you where to focus next.
Yeah, I absolutely love that. Well, Yasmine, this has been a great conversation, and I love your perspective on how to build an integrated growth marketing strategy. Now, if anybody is listening and has any follow-up questions or would like to connect with you, what's the best way for someone to find you?
Awesome. Sean, you can reach me via email. So it's Yasmine, Yasmine @market8.net. You can probably find me on LinkedIn. So I've got a first name and a last name that are a bit confusing, but Yasmine, Yasmine de Aranda, Dearanda. I'd be glad to answer any questions, and the team too.
Wonderful. Well, Yasmine, thanks again for being on the show. We really appreciate it.
Same here. Thank you, Sean, for having me. It's been great.
We totally get it. We publish a ton of content on this podcast, and it can be a lot to keep up with. That's why we've started the B2B Growth Big 3. A no-fluff email that boils down our 3 biggest takeaways from an entire week of episodes. Sign up today at sweetfishmedia.com/big3. That's sweetfishmedia.com/big3.